Hocam çok teşekkür ediyorum. Yine sizin desteğinizle hayata geçmiş bir süreç aslında bu. Yenilikçi Sağlık Teknolojileri çalıştayı ve dersiyle başladı bu süreç. Yani sizin organize ettiğiniz bir süreçte Drexel Üniversitesi Küresel Yenilikçi Ortaklıkları ve ARI-GIP-MEDİPOL işbirliğiyle yürüyordu. Biz daha sonra bunu bir Türkçe içeriğe döndürmek, daha çok kitleye ulaşmak ve Türkiye'deki süreci belki kendi ana dilimizde daha sağlıklı bir şekilde tartışabilmek için bir Türkçe seminer serisi organize ettik. Yenilikçi Sağlık Teknolojileri seminer serisi. Bu seride de çok güzel konuklarımız oldu. 10 hafta boyunca tartıştık neler yapılabilir, neler olabilir, neleri farklı yapabiliriz ya da neler zaten doğru bilinen şeyler. Orada bazı eksik gördüğümüz noktalar ya da daha çok konuşmak istediğimiz noktalar vardı. Bunlar için de yaz aylarında yaz buluşmaları düzenledik. Banu hocamız sağ olsun bunları başlattı, bu yaz buluşmaları. Bugün üçüncüsünü yapıyoruz yaz buluşmalarının. İlkinde pazarlama konusundan başladık. Aslında seminer serimizi hukuk konusuyla bitirmiştik. Bu yenilikçi sağlık teknolojilerindeki firmalaşma sürecinde olmazsa olmazlardan biri olarak bahsedilmişti hukuktan. Pazarlama da keza aynı şekilde en başından düşünülmesi gereken bir süreç diye ilk olarak pazarlamayla sevgili Gülderen Somar'la başladık. Daha sonra Dilek Uzunok da bize düzenleyicilerle ilgili biraz küresel bir bakış açısı sundu bu sefer. Seminer serimizde de ağırlamıştık kendini. Şimdi bugün üçüncü buluşmamızda daha somut bir deneyimle ilerliyoruz diye tahmin ediyorum. Bıçakcılar Türkiye'de 60 yılı aşkın bir geçmişe sahip bir medikal değer yaratan bir firma. Dünyada da tanınan ve kabul görmüş bir firma. Bugün CEO'su Dr. Souheil Elhakim'i ağırlıyor olacağız. Kendisi de aslında dünyada birçok yerde, ülkede bulunmuş. Türkiye'de de bu alanda, sağlık teknolojileri alanında faaliyet gösteren geniş bir bakış açısına ve tecrübeye sahip. Bize neler farklı, neler avantajımız, neler dezavantajımız belki geniş bir bakış açısıyla sunabiliyor olacak bugün. Bu şekilde bugünkü seminerimize giriş yapabiliriz. Banu Hocam, eğer sizin eklemek istediğiniz bir şey yoksa.
Yalnız biz Souheil girdi, fakat ayrıldı bir şekilde. İsterseniz sen devam edebilirsin. Ders konusunda, çalıştay konusunda da bilgi verirsin. Ben Souheil'e bir arayayım lütfen.
Tamam. Medikal Sağlık Teknolojileri çalıştayı yine Drexel Arı Teknokent'in düzenlediği aslında her dönem gerçekleşiyor. Tekrar yeniden Eylül ayında başlayacak bu dönem. Burada seminer serisinde olduğu gibi konukların yanı sıra gerçekte firma modelleri, yani başlangıç firmaları örnekleri mevcut. Bu örnekler derste konu olarak işleniyor. Yani dersi alan öğrenciler tarafından detaylı bir şekilde tahlil edilerek zayıf yönleri, güçlü yönleri, yani bir ekip oluşturarak gerçek bir firma üzerinde belki de öğrenciler sahip olamayacakları, yaşayarak sahip olabilecekleri bir deneyimi bu ders üzerinden kazanmış oluyorlar. Network de tabii ki bu şekilde genişliyor. Burada oluşturduğumuz dayanışma aslında o dersin bir bizlere sağladığı bir kolaylık. Benzer şekilde burada oluşturduğumuz ders içerikleri, kayıtlar, bu dersi besleyecek şekilde bir kanal oluşturarak herkese açık hale getirilecek. Bunu da ekleyebilirim buradan. Bu şekilde gelecek dönemi heyecanla bekliyoruz hocam. Yeni firmalar, yeni oluşumlarla öğrendiklerimizi nasıl uygulayabiliyoruzu göreceğiz diye umuyorum.
İnşallah ve tabii ki vaka firmaları devamlı değişmekte. Bu kez bir farklılık, bu öğrencilerden geri gelen bildirimlerle biraz farklı bir yaklaşım alıp ilk dönemde yerleşik ve bizim iyi bildiğimiz vaka firmalarıyla çalıştaya katılan başlangıç firmalarına evet Souheil katıldı. O yüzden evet bağlantısı oldu. Ben kısaca bunu tamamlayayım. Hi Souheil.
Hi.
Hi there. We are just chatting while waiting for you. Şimdi değişiklik, önemli değişiklik ilk dönemde başlangıç firmaları. Mesela Alperen'in arkadaşlarıyla kurduğu firma eğer aramıza girerse vaka olarak ikinci dönemde ele alınacak. Çünkü onlar çok genç ve çok ihtimam göstermek gerekiyor. İlk dönemde temel kavramları biz bir yatırımcı gözüyle bu konuya vaktini, çevresini, nakitini, bilgisini aktaracak kişilerin neye baktıklarını, yani bir yatırımcı gözüyle başlangıç firmasına ciddi bakış ve bunu evrensel kıstaslarla yapmak. Bunun için Çin'den gelenler, Türkiye'den gelenler ve Amerika'dan gelenlerin de apaynı şeyi söyledikleri ortaya çıkacak. Demek ki yatırımcı gözüyle bakmak, riskleri azalmış nispeten ve artık yatırımcının riskleri yönetebileceği dereceye gelmiş. O dereceye getirmeden önce kurulan Türkiye'deki, bunu Souheil'le de herhalde bir parça konuşacağız. Türkiye'de yanlış bir yaklaşımla, biraz Silicon Valley yaklaşımı oldu bu. Acele başlangıç firması kurmak. Yani riskler azalmadan güvenli bir ortamda, bir ARGE merkezinde, bir teknoparkta, bir üniversitede riskler azalmadan ve bu riskleri daha sonra tekrardan ele alırız. Başlangıç firması kurmak kadar tehlikeli bir şey yok. Dün bu TÜBİTAK'ın bu türlü prototipleme merkezlerinin kuruluşu için değerlendirme kurulundaydım. Birazdan da bitince bu toplantı ona gireceğim. Müthiş bir prototip mezarlığına neden oldu Türkiye'de. Ve Bıçakçılar gibi firmaların ele alıp da daha da geliştireceği, ürünleştirebileceği seviyeye gelmemiş firmalarla arada büyük bir boşluk oldu. Ve o boşluktan itibaren pek çok hevesi kırılmış. Genç girişimcilikten uzaklaşan yatırımcı, yani risk sermayesinden uzaklaşan yatırımcı gibi çok garip sonuçlarla karşılaştık. Ve bu 10-15 sene çok bu işin içinde daha önce olmuş ve çalışmışların uyarılarına rağmen oldu. Demek ki herkes kendi yolunu belirliyor. Türkiye modelini daha yaratamadığı için başka modelleri kullanıp çalışmadığını ispat etti. Bunu başardık. Bugün de bu buluşmalarda ve mesela pazarlamayı, hukuku, düzenleyici olayını en baştan düşünmemek ve kol kola, senin tabirine galiba omuz omuza yürümemek, bu yepyeni bir teknolojiyi ya da yeni nesili dahi yürütürken bunlara sonuç verdi. Now we're switching to English because our guest understands us when we speak Turkish, don't we, Souheil? You get it. Yeah. Our conversation will be a mix of Turkish and English. We're recording. I hope it's okay with you, Souheil?
No problem. That's no problem.
Because as Yasemin explained, we are trying to create content that is mostly Turkish, but some English is also allowed. So you're the English element of these conversations. So Souheil, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Because you have a very interesting pedigree, and that pedigree positions you, especially as a medtech executive in Turkey, at a very different level. You see things that others don't see. And we would like to discuss, we would like to have a conversation, and I'm sure some of the participants may also want to address some of their questions later on. So please tell us about yourself, about Bıçakçılar, about your other experiences, and we would like to look at Turkish medtech industry with your eyes today.
Very well. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. It's really a privilege to be here with you. You give me a lot of credit for my background and how I see things, but I see it as a necessity. I mean, if you don't work on yourself a lot to be ready to face the challenges, then you're doomed to suffer a little bit. So I'm not saying that my training or the experience are enough, but they help, and you have to constantly shape them in order to continue on your mission, on your journey that you have chosen to do. So A little bit about myself. I'm an engineer by training. I've done my master in my background is computer communication engineering in Beirut, American University of Beirut. Then I moved to Canada, where I had my master's and PhD in biomedical and medical physics at McGill University. And actually, it was part of the Faculty of Medicine. So maybe part of the coursework is spending a lot of courses in medicine and then shifting. And I had like a lot of colleagues shifting from medicine to biomedical. And in Canada, I had a chance to work on a number of projects. But why I'm mentioning them? Because it's the ability to work at the same table with surgeons. And these people were actually either doing a master's degree, a PhD, or actually are passionate about what they're doing. And we were working on some devices that they want to build. And that partnership we had allowed me to see things from their perspective, how they think. Surgeons think differently. So, or let's say healthcare practitioners think a little bit differently than us as engineers, which brought obviously some solutions, some patents, etc. I moved my career to France, where I worked with GE, and again in the development world. So we were the first to launch that first digital mammogram at that time. Also, we work a lot with healthcare practitioners, but not as much as we did in research times. And then I moved to the world of business, which was an eye-opener. I hated it in the beginning because I thought that I want to be in the world of technical, but then I soon understood is that I can put that background and keep shaping it in order to serve the purpose of how can I get our solutions or the solutions that are designed by the company I'm working with to the world, and how can we serve? And that was an extremely enriching experience, 15 years or more in the world of business in that previous company before I joined Bıçakcılar, because I got to see things from a global perspective, worked with so many cultures. Actually, I had responsibilities over many geographies, sometimes global, different businesses. I was engaged, volunteering in so many different ways in terms of the portfolio enrichment or the patenting process, etc. All of this before I joined Bıçakcılar about 6 years ago. And in Bıçakcılar, it's probably the most, let's say, unstable environment that I've ever had in my career, because I'm working in Turkey, I'm working in a relatively smaller biomedical production company, smaller than the companies I worked in GE or Medtronic. So, but to be honest with you, it's the most exciting time I've ever had in my life. And I just talking about it today, how lucky and excited, even though the number of challenges that I'm witnessing in my career are maybe 10 times what I'm witnessing in all aspects, whether related to cultures, to the processes, to the work, etc. And I'll explain to you why I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it because it's in the first time you are involved. I'm involved in the entire process. So from the idea towards the impact, how we can impact patients around the globe and not just in Turkey, despite all the challenges that one can witness in Turkey. And here I'm not saying that Turkey is so special about problems and challenges, because I hear that a lot. If you go to the States, you will witness another set of challenges. If you go to Bangladesh, you will face another set of challenges, not necessarily easier or more difficult. It depends. So, and that's how we have to always look at what we have as an advantage versus disadvantages. So that's probably will bring us to the second question, is how we see things in Turkey, and how, and I'm more than happy even to share with you, with my experience in Turkey, what went right and what went, or what's in actually in the work, and we're still processing, trying to figure it out. So with this, is this good enough?
It's wonderful, and you have already projected your optimistic, positive spirit, because you are a can-do person. Whatever the circumstances, however unstable, however uncertain, you manage to create value. So that is probably why you enjoy the entire journey from concept to commercialization, because you constantly close the gaps and make sure that things move forward and some value is created. Tell us a little bit about Bıçakcılar as a company, because many may not know how this company is positioned in Turkey or in the world, because it's a very interesting, special type of a company. It's very specialized. The domains are very narrow, but it goes very deep and it goes global. So could you please tell us a little bit about
Very well. With pleasure. Bıçakcılar is obviously a company that has been established about 63 years ago. 63 sene önce. And it was established by a family. Obviously, you can imagine the Bıçakçı, the father, and then he had 4 sons. And actually, up until 2011, they sold their company to a fund. But what they did, and I find it extremely visionary, is that they relied on decreasing the imports from outside, and we can build it inside, we can build it in Turkey. There's nothing that prevents us from building it. We can imitate, we can innovate, but at the end, they recognized what the healthcare practitioners needed, and they went back to their shop and figured it out. So when I look at the history a bit, because it was very intriguing, is actually 4 brothers, each one occupied a certain function in the organization, one of them in the management, another one in the production, one in the innovation, etc., finance. And actually they built an organization throughout time. So at that time, there was not much of regulatory. Today, regulations are actually drive the way we do things. We are under the control of the regulations, and that's good and bad. Good because it regulates things, it drives you to build. We are in the healthcare, so we have to provide safe, affordable, transparent, repeatable ability to investigate where there is something wrong. That well-documented organization or processes. We don't like it because it's extremely time-consuming, expensive, detailed, etc. But I like it actually. It makes us what we are. Anyway, at that time, regulations were not there, but they managed to build the quality organization, the quality products. If you start correctly, it's highly likely you will continue to be in the right direction. But if you start wrongly, it will be too costly. If you try to find the short ways, shortcuts in the wrong, to decrease the cost, but compromise on the quality of the products, obviously you're going to suffer later, because then it won't work. But they really managed to build the state-of-the-art, best-in-class organization. So, and they were focused again on reducing the imports. Mm-hmm. In 2011, it was purchased by a fund who's actually was looking to kind of incorporate this organization, but their ultimate goal, the fund, they actually acquire an organization, they turn it into a more profitable organization, and they sell it. Mm-hmm. The fund still owns the organization. It's actually owned by shareholders. To us as management, it's just myself, I report to the board, but they do not get involved in any way into the management of the organization. They have the right to obviously to ask, etc. And since 2011 until 2016, end of 16 when I joined, the organization was going through a gestational process. So going from a family type of culture towards a more of a corporate professional kind of organization is not something easy to do, because the first thing that it will impact is the culture, the team, the culture of the organization. Obviously, throughout the period from the day it was conceived, this organization, up until today, a lot has happened and changed in the world, in the markets, in the demands, in the new generations of doctors came, different perspectives. So the question is, how you build an organization that is able to adapt and to be sometimes not to react, but more like to be on the leading side of things, because any change in the market could take you maybe years to adapt, and then it's too late. You're dead. Your competitors will take over. Your customers will forget you. So the question is how you keep the how you read the markets, how you read the politics, the geopolitics, how you identify what you have as pluses, as weaknesses, and then you set the organization to be able to adapt to any type of situation. Today we have wars going on. Taiwan under the threat of China. We buy from China some material. We sell to Europe, our largest market. How can we keep things in control without stepping on anyone's toe while we keep our operations ready? And that's where we run a lot of scenarios. So the good legacy that this family left us is they built a very, very good platform, an excellent process that doesn't change much, but it's involved, it improves. The technology, production, infrastructure, technology, R&D tools, lab tests, etc., they may change. But what doesn't change, or actually it gets improved, is the process. How can you, what you accumulated across the years in terms of experience, and how you can keep upgrading it and updating it. The technology gets eventually old. You can update it with investments. But what makes it more interesting is how your processes are the best in class, which allow you to navigate through this intricate world of minefields, I say, to be able to deliver on your mission successfully, and to be able to compete and to actually do a fair profit, so that you can continue to grow as an organization. I'll give you some hints about what we've done in this extremely volatile environment. In end of 2016, I joined, and I joined coming from an environment, multinational, so a lot of standards. I'm an engineer, so things in my mind have to be very clear. And I came to an organization where the family culture, the way of thinking, is still very much abundant. The TL started to depreciate. I remember it was 2 lira per dollar. Then the first 6 months it was 3 lira. Then you know the story. Now we are 18. In 2018, there was a crisis. In 2016, June, there was a darbe, a coup. Mm-hmm. So that shakes the body of the organization or this industry to its bones. I joined, there was a debt of $28 million. We are an organization of $45 million year on year, but of course it's growing. So I had a $28 million with a lot of banks kind of doubt about the organization. Plus, obviously you have to pay the interests. The organization, I noticed a lot of our products were being built, but if you look at the profitability, which no one was asking about, was actually negative. So I don't know why we were building them. I mentioned that there were a lot of good things, but I want to mention the challenges. The external and the internal challenges, the the culture was not to evolve the culture more like, well, if it ain't broken, we shouldn't fix it. Let's continue what. There was a lot of possibility of power struggles inside. I remember, you know, we had a lot of expenses, so a lot of business plans which were made like Excel sheets, then immediately triggering an investment, but it leads nowhere. And when the second year we started like revising our, for instance, car rentals, no one wants to work with us because our balance sheets are not good enough. Today, and it's not because I actually called Professor Banu at the beginning. Do you remember that call?
Yes, yes.
Someone recommended your name, and I just needed, I was alone actually, and everyone expected me to eject. And to be honest with you, I was ready to eject because I said, what did I do to myself? I'm coming from a different perspective, but I was very lucky because I didn't have a backup plan. So that's the trick. My backup plan is to go somewhere else, back to Europe, the States, Canada, Lebanon. I don't know where to go back. And I didn't have any other. I have a family, so I had to really think hard. So my backup plan was actually to stay where I am and to try to figure it out and to fight my wars. So there was, obviously there is a lot of politics, etc. But I had a lot of confidence, and that's extremely important because I can see very clearly that this is something totally wrong what's happening in terms of, and we have some Cadillac or a Porsche, but somehow the wheels were terribly placed or not well or not the right quality, etc. Anyway, so I had a call with Professor Banu and I said, what do you think I should do in this case? Well, you said something which was very important, which I think I truly believed. I applied it, but I've never applied it. I just needed to hear from someone like your caliber so that I can feel even more confident. It's like, you've got to drive the entire organization with you. If I try to clear it out by myself alone, I won't be able to do it. But I had to kind of do a lot of convincing, a lot of negotiation internally, externally. The whole organization has to walk with me towards where we want to go. And that's not our processes. Our processes are very good. It's actually the first and most important is the culture of the organization, the can-do, as you mentioned, the ability to see where we're heading, the purpose. Why are we doing this? Are we doing this only to generate cash or to preserve our jobs or to look good? But is that another purpose? And I've always had this. I've always wanted to go into medicine. This is very personal, but to me, to be able to think or to apply engineering principles, engineering technology, to come up with a solution that helps someone, a safe solution that helps someone out there where others, practitioners, are able to use it, is extremely, extremely attractive. It actually, I always call it my nuclear energy, because when I'm really down, I'm facing big issues, a lot of poison around me, I just remember this and I feel rejuvenated in a split of a second. I said, no, that's what makes us unique. And that's what, so the ability is I don't have a backup plan. What am I going to do? And I have to figure it out. And the excitement of doing this. And actually, that's a beautiful mix that you can solve anything, whether in Turkey, in Lebanon, which is 10 times worse than Turkish situation, and it's a small country, but you still see a lot of innovation coming out from there, which adapts to the situation. So probably with the team, we stopped hearing, well, complaining about Turkey. Only finance sometimes, but I tell them, well, we figured it out. Let's figure it out. Turkey is actually there are a lot of pluses. The list of pluses in Turkey for a medical device company exceeds the negatives, despite everyone is complaining about everything. And this is normal. When I left, by the way, just kind of a small note, when I left Beirut in 1991, 1990 or end of 89 was the last war, 17 years of war, and it was a very bad war. And I was like 22, 23. And when I went to Canada, and I was like discovering, you know, McGill, the best-in-class research centers, $1.5 billion a budget for research and as a university. So you can imagine best-in-class, world-class actually facilities, and people were complaining. And I was like, what are you talking about? You have water, you have bread, you have gas, you have security. What can you complain about? And they were complaining about the streets and about, you know, the French English culture. And I was like, I couldn't understand this. It took me a couple of years to figure out that, yeah, it's actually because they are, to me, they're shamarik. And maybe, sorry, I don't mean that Turkey also, but I'm saying that you have to have the attitude of a fighter. We didn't have, actually someone was shooting at us in class when I did my GMAT. So we had to hide under the tables, and one anti-aircraft bullet went into the class, but we were not allowed to leave. So what I'm trying to say here is that it's all relative. Turkey is a hub of, it could be a hub of innovation and for medical device technology. And we have a huge opportunity because today it's 80%. About 2 years ago, it was 85%, but today 80% of the medical devices are imported. So can you imagine 80% of 85 million people with one of the most mature medical systems in Turkey, the SUT and all that kind of systems, and you have a very good mature system in Turkey, you are importing 80%. And for a country which is very young and full of talent, it is something that's a big question mark. So why? I think it's more psychological. I think people are contagious because you're a very nice society that you give a lot of emphasis onto relationships, so you can also be affected by others. I don't know. So, but if you go to the US, yeah, there are a lot of good advantages, but living there is, I call it ruhsuz. There's no spirituality, which is extremely important for your innovation, for your mental health when you are facing your challenges. Mm-hmm. And you will be facing challenges if you're going into any type of any project in your life. The stars will never align. You have to align them, and sometimes you have to make compromises, and you have to kind of play chess. You have to figure it out. So, but I still believe if I'm given a chance to establish a company in Croatia, maybe not Croatia, maybe in the US, I would definitely, my first choice is Turkey. Not only about the ecosystem for medical devices, but your food, your weather, your Ege Sea, the people in Turkey. I've never seen I've lived almost across the world. I've seen every nationality, but my first choice is that Turkey. And I'm not saying this to make you feel good, but you really have a lot of good things in your society. The mercy that exists. Of course, there are always things that challenge you down to the bone, but relatively speaking, for a country of 85 million and a city of 20 million that is equal to New York, if you say hi to someone in the street or you need help, you'll find 20 people helping you versus you may, God forbid, fall in the streets and no one can look at you in New York. So if you just compare that, and that's the whole package. So going back to the medical devices, yes, there are challenges. Yes, the TL is depreciating. Yes, your collection We cannot collect our money. Today, when I joined, there was like $25 million of collection, worth of collection. So do that in tele, it was like 50, 60 million tele that we need to collect, and we're not collecting from the government. It's overdue, and the TL is depreciating. So the value of the money that you have in the field is getting less. And when you collect, when the government says, I want to pay you, they ask you for an interim. So I say, okay, I cannot wait more because I'll accept your interim requests, 25%, 15%, versus waiting indefinitely. So how can you do it? How can you manage that? Today, we are 80% of our revenue is dollar-based. Our collection is 3 months, and I cannot go beyond that. Of course, plus minus. How can you do that? Well, we figured it out. I cannot tell you how, it's not a secret, but there is a whole process, but we figured it out. And what does it mean? It means that we figured out a process that allows us to now, of course, we did a lot of work, to now allow us to think now more ambitiously. We've always been thinking ambitiously, but now we have to execute our plans to go to the next level of our biggest challenge. So remember, we were an importing company, so we were focusing, our strategy was to reduce the import, so we're focusing on Turkish markets, but the world is bigger than Turkey. So if we want to go and globalize ourselves, and we have 3 strategic intents, is globalization, innovation, and operations excellence. So if we want to globalize ourselves, that model, and that's when we want to think, you cannot build something for only one country or one market. That model doesn't exist, cannot survive, is not sustainable. Just we are the first, the largest in Turkey, so no one can stand in front of us, and we will always be cheaper with the highest quality. That cannot sustain, because if we are the only producers of, let's say, IV cannula in Turkey, there are 50 other producers outside. So if we want to go outside and sell those IV cannulas, impossible to compete. They will beat us. I mean, this is an IV cannula, they always beat us on the price. They always figure it out. So how do we manage the globalization? That's actually a process we've been going through, and so far it has been yielding results. It's actually by changing, again, our culture and our ability to see things, our attitude towards things. We need to constantly, there's absolutely nothing we can do about, is to constantly evolve. If we're doing something very well, we should do it better next year. And if we're doing it better next year, we should do it even better the year after. So everything we do, we have a plan to improve. That's one of our strategic intents. The second thing is our innovation. And I'm not talking about product innovation. I'm talking about anything we do. How can we do it not only better, but smarter, sometimes with more resilience. So with more efficiency, can we cut short the way without compromising the quality, etc. And the last is our globalization, which are very tightly linked to the first two, operations excellence and innovation. Then we have to bring value, and our value has to be at the global scale. That means whatever we bring in, it has to be unique. Our services, our products, our impact as people, our techniques in terms of how we sell, how we communicate, how we mark our presence, how we negotiate. And that we cannot do alone. We need a lot of input from outside, the smarter, the best practitioners, but also from inside, where we devised partnerships, and we continue to devise partnerships. So we look, example, I always say, Aselsan is the best in engineering today in Turkey. Well, let's do some business with them. Let's give them work in engineering where they exceed our engineering know-how. But we know what we want to do. We share, and then we find a way where we complement each other. Same thing with other companies and other organizations. That's exactly which actually I said it's yielding result, and it's not an ending story. It will end when we are able to serve every patient in the world, and that's something probably is unlimited. But that's the way we measure ourselves, is how many patients are we really making an impact in terms of on patients. And obviously we have to keep an eye on how we evolve, not only, as I mentioned, on how we do things, but on our trainings, developments, technologies, know-how, experience. Everything is on the table. I always say there are no taboos. Everything is on the table. We have to explore it. You may say, but how do you finance that? Well, fine. So priorities, we set our priorities. We sometimes we drop things, we adapt. But at the end, if you really have an engagement, and that's very important, it's not my story, never force. You engage everyone, you give them their space to think, responsibility, you train them, you make them the masters, you attract the talent. It's really, it doesn't take a lot of thinking. It's really a process that we run to, and you just need the energy on, which I truly believe that year on year we marked a very healthy balance sheet. The tides are turned now to us, because now we are a hot company. A lot of our people who do not want to marry us, do not want to talk to us, now they're competing to do work with us. This is very good for us. It gives me a measure to say, well, we're doing the right thing. Do we say, Hadi, we're good? Absolutely not. It just keeps us even more engaged, to do more confidence to do what we want to do. So,
hey, this was absolutely an amazing overview of what has happened, but let me make a confession. I never told you this. When you called me and then we first met, typically international people who descend in Turkey with all sorts of unrealistic ideas and perceptions eventually would not endure. However, in our meeting, I realized something, not during our phone conversation, but in our first meeting, I realized that we shared a mission. We are determined, you are determined, those of us who are participating today, the startup company for which you have already said great encouraging words, this is music to their ears, that Turkey is the place to go, because Alperen just moved from Italy to Turkey. And he was wondering if he should do that. And I said, go do this. Because he's also like that, and his partners next week, in 2 weeks, we will hear their story. But in any case, I remember thinking for the first time, for an international person, that not only do we share a mission, that you understood the potential of Turkey, which from within is very hard to understand. Because remember, and I keep saying this to this group, since the Cold War, after the Second World War, Turkey has become a dominion of the United States, basically. It has been basically a part of political conjuncture where Turkey is a subservient, has become, after 15 years of an amazing buildup of a republic, very modern, futuristic republic that could do anything that it wanted to do. It could fly planes when only 5 countries in the world could fly planes, and Turkey was only a 10-year-old republic after the First World War and then Liberation War and everything. So people, as you noticed, are of high quality because of the culture, because of the soul that they have, because they truly are. Right now, after 75 years of the subservience and losing self-confidence and becoming almost what's called learned hopelessness kind of thing, they are re-emerging again, figuring out, oh my God, the Western world order is changing. What have we done? So we have to take care of things. So when we met, I understood that you understood the potential. And also, as a person, very rarely do I meet someone who's a change agent under whatever circumstance. There are those change agents who are put on this world somehow culturally through the DNAs or whatever. These people are for change, for transformation. I understood that about you. This I remember thinking, this man may, I did not say will, last in Turkey. And you did. And truly, one thing that I understood as I followed you to a point, how you helped a startup, the Soranus, for instance, how you went about and what you did for them and so on and so on. You, like we do, believe that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. And every culture, every history, evolution of history requires its own way of doing things. We have actually a saying in Turkish, her yiğidin bir yoğurt yiyişi vardır. We believe that all heroes eat yogurt in a different way, because these heroes do not need to be celebrities or anything, but these are people who make things happen, but in their own way. Atatürk, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk used to call it Türk tipi. My grandfather, Nuri Demirel, called it that way also. So it was, I felt in you as an outsider coming in, though you had married a Turkish woman and so on and so forth, that gave me a little bit of more hope, but it wasn't a factor that made me decide this man is worth following, if necessary, connecting with others and so on and so forth. And you did exactly what you said, because Bıçakcılar had started, this is like the beginning of almost the Cold War. We were beginning to understand what we got ourselves into and how imports were going to kill us, because during the first 15 years, and even through the Second World War, we were almost self-reliant and independent, especially because of the war. Defense industry, in aviation, in heavy industry, we had created such amazing infrastructure, such factories all over in such a short time, and we had now lost our way. And probably Bıçakcılar brothers subconsciously realized we must stop this trend, that we must build what others sell us with extra markups, better quality. I saw this also in China, starting in 2000, 2005, 2010, when Mindrace type of company, a company that I know very well also in China, did exactly the same thing. Quality became their brand, basically. And what they did was to replicate maybe the new generation of existing technologies in China, but always to the quality and affordability. I think Serdar's, I have to, Serdar, could you please mute yourself? Because there is noise coming from your microphone. But in any case, so clearly at the time, I had that impression, and oftentimes my impressions work. Sometimes they don't, but in your case it worked. So therefore, from what you have discussed, and operating in Turkey through difficult times, because 2016, when you really took the helm of a sort of branded company that was trying to transition from a family business to a corporate business, you spearheaded that transition, and you also at the same time continued to adapt in a transformational kind of a leadership, meaning colleagues from Bıçakcılar began to see what they were capable of, thanks to you. And this truly has fueled some of them who had belonged with the old guard, did not last, though they still are very much fond of Bıçakcılar's success. So Bıçakcılar now has a competition in Turkey, has had some competition in Turkey. How do you fare versus them? And before we go to the questions with the audience, and I have some other questions myself, how do you fare in terms of the competition in Turkey? Do you have peers that you learn from, or you compete with, you cooperate? How is it going these days? Because I know a few companies and I can bring them up, but you probably will tell that.
Well, there is a tendency, actually, not only in Turkey, in many cultures where maybe you can see it also in different sectors where people would say, if my neighbor is successful doing this, well, let me imitate.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, yeah, you may be successful by bringing the price down, so you can go ahead and sell, but it's very short-sighted,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a shortcut. It's not sustainable.
Yes.
However, you can say, let me see the model of success of my neighbor, and let me imitate the model, but with something totally new. So let me see from his success, learn, and we had a lot of those companies, or they existed, or they, I believe that they were imitating what we're doing to compete.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought some of them, not all, were very innovative, but they didn't have a strategy.
Mm.
So we actually called some of them and we said, Galabi, why are you building this? Let's build that. That's what we need. And what we promise you, a fast track towards the international markets,
Mm-hmm.
a better quality process. We will help you where you have misses in terms of some of the functions, some of the talents. So I like to do that because unfortunately in Turkey and even in some of the regional country, there is a tendency to think the other side is better, is smarter. And this is a story, but utter rubbish. Actually, I can say an average Turkish businessman is even much more agile than any other entrepreneur in the West, for example, or somewhere else where the system is very solid. Because you have to, if you are able to establish a company in Turkey, then the likeliness of your success worldwide is going to be higher than if you establish your business in a very, very well solid system, like for instance England or Europe or the States. Just to give you an example, just last week I was in UK in Manchester, and I was talking to a production company, a company that is specialized in cardiac surgery solutions, etc. And we work with them, and we are planning even to increase our joint work together. So there are a lot of discussions. One of the things, I was sitting with the CEO and he was saying, well, inflation. I said, inflation? He said, yeah, 7% inflation, and we have to go in and increase our prices. Energy is high. I don't know what to do. We have to go in and transfer all of that to our customers, to you, because we also are their customers. And I said to him, but you're on an English pound. You're the hard currency. You're the target that we seek. How do you manage with the TL, which is not the hard currency? In a way, his standards is different than ours. He is such a good man, very well, let's say, experienced, very scientific, but I call him ham. You haven't seen anything. So, and the second thing, he was telling me about one of the core product. He said, well, we are facing competition, so we want to stay away from this, which is a core product. That's where his expertise is. And we were going to do another thing. And he said that, well, we're facing competition from multinationals and we cannot win this war. I said, on the contrary, you do not want to compete. I agree, you do not want to compete with the multinationals, but you want to bring a different value to the customers that the multinationals are not able to bring. And I can tell you right up front, the multinationals have a high OPEX. They cannot enter into the value market. When we call it the value market, that means they want the best, but they have to get it in the most economical way. The premium markets are those who want the best, but they afford the luxury. The underserved market is actually those markets who want to just get the system running. They may not have the infrastructure needed, and they're very difficult to serve. They are the highest, the biggest. The value market is still untapped. And I was actually telling him that his production capacity, we want to quadruple it. And he was like, look, are you sure? I said, Heman, I will commit to your quadruple production. And we made an agreement. So what I'm trying to say here is that this notion of Europeans are smarter. Yeah, there are a lot of good things in Europe, not smarter or better system, better XYZ, better ecosystem, better process, etc. But don't forget what you have. And what you have is yourself and your determination and your market. And I believe, even maybe I'm half Turkish, my nationality, I'm Turkish, but I truly believe that we owe this country more than running away and establishing our companies somewhere else to serve someone else. I'm very happy about, of course, we have to go and gain experience, but we have to come back and pay back to the country which educated us or gave us. So you asked me about competition. Competition always exists. I'm not worried about competition. Competition helps us, more or less. Competition is actually a free marketing tool when we are going in a high-level therapy, let's say, solution. So actually, if they talk about it, it's a free marketing for them. Then more customers will adopt whether my solution or their solution. Then it's a question, how can we do better than our competition? Our war or our mission was never about competition. Our mission is how we want to serve. And I believe it down to the core of my genes. How we want to, if you focus on, I feel jealous actually when others make it and we are not able to make it because we believe we cannot make it. I feel when I'm sitting with my colleagues in Europe and we're talking and I say to myself, how come this person who is very smart, but I still believe that I have the right, smarter people, we can do it. Why? Is it because the collection is better? Is it because they get a lot of help from the government? I mean, it's not each person, each entity has its own demons to beat, and we have our own demons to beat, and there is absolutely, I can say that, no excuse not to be successful. I think I froze somewhere. Are you hearing me?
Yes, no, you're good. Actually, can I summarize what you're trying to say? For someone who's looking in from the outside, hariçten gazel kind of looking, is that Turkish businessmen, not necessarily in this sector, by the way, because this sector has not been created, and I'd like to speak about this to you. That's why I asked about the competition. Competition means that you have now a sector. You have now established the norms of what we call an industrial sector. It doesn't yet exist because it's an import sector in terms of medtech. But we will come to that. But Turkish business people who have survived throughout the years are the best trained in crisis management. You could not have a better training environment. And I'm looking at Veysel right now, who's sipping his coffee. He's one of the entrepreneurs. He's the entrepreneur in this glaucoma startup that we will be looking into in 2 weeks. But in any case, they are hardened. Crisis management training is not available at any university or anything. Mothers and business people in Turkey have gained an extra edge against the world. Now, you can take any Turkish person who has survived and has done successful things, take them to China, take them to South America, Africa, wherever you want. They will be successful because they know how to manage crisis, and they are very realistic about the environment, the reality, and they adapt and find ways of accomplishing creating some value. So that was the thing. Competition, the reason I asked, because I know of üzümcüs and this, that, and everything. Have they reached what Bıçakcılar has been able to do in the last 4 or 5 years, the level of transformation that they need in order to fit the new life sciences and medtech world order? Have they caught up? Because they were very traditional, they were very sort of assembly, they were very parçacı, parts type. They would put together only things that already existed, had a market, developed, and so on and so on. Have they caught up with you? So that's what I'm trying to say. Has the sector formed?
It's hard actually to answer that question, because then I would be answering the question on their behalf. But if I want to observe it from others, from my perspective to others, if you do not change and adapt to the change and to the market request, the market is very dynamic, very quick.
Yes.
It's like a quagmire. You have to constantly move so that you don't sink. They will not exist. So if they still exist, it means they still have something good happening. And I'm saying here exist, not thanks to the help of the banks. So we know some companies that are existing, but that actually are living off of debts, and but they have other bigger businesses which kind of cover for that's not sustainable. Eventually, one day soon, they will die out. And I hope not. I hope they will catch up very quickly with what they need to do so that they can survive.
So we are at the beginning of a awareness, but not yet outcomes, because government dishes out a lot of subsidies for a lot of technologies. And I'm at 10:30, we will have to adjourn so that I can go and meet this platform is from Hacettepe University, actually, with a very profound history in terms of biomaterials. And they are now reorganized themselves and to be able to fuel this transformation that is happening in the world. In the world of life sciences and medtech, there is such a huge change, evolution that's happening, even a revolution that's happening, that unless you catch that, you cannot have the industries of the future, or you cannot have competitive industries. But let's sort of open the floor to conversations. Perhaps our startup, our sort of token startup today that is present today, maybe they have some questions to you, because I've watched you help a startup that wasn't in your domain, because Bıçakcılar has very specialized domains. Could you quote the domains? Please tell us which domain Bıçakcılar specializes.
Sure. We are in the neurosurgery, especially in the OR space, not outside of the operating surgical space. Also in cardiac surgery, we're also 70% of our production capacities, etc., are in the disposables, which cover actually anesthesia, ICU, etc. So we call them the disposables or the plastics. Also, we're in the OR solutions sector. So any technology related to establishing an operating room, so tables, lights, aspirators, and now we're going into more of the enabling technologies, more specialized. That's something we're looking into. All this, again, it has to be in the surgical space. We're specialized in the surgical space. That's where we work in. Of course, we also have a laboratory, which is profitable laboratory. That means we do services for the outside, but also for the Bıçakcılar needs, the medical device laboratory.
So, though that startup, Soranus, was not central to your expertise area, though it could have been another area that you may want to go in, the way you help them with a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience, because when a startup starts, as the word says, and especially because startups in Turkey, in general, start too soon. without the risk abatement that needs to happen before an incorporation happens. You were very patient, and they were wonderful people, a surgeon, and Serdal, of course, is fantastic, and others. So you basically put them on their path. You managed that. And I think you did it as a hobby. Am I correct?
Well, it costs a lot of money. It's very costly hobby. but
you hit commercial print.
Yeah.
You also,
that's a very good.
Yeah, please.
Sorry, that's a very good question. Actually, there are multi reasons. One of them is it fits into our strategy of add value. What solutions? Because I needed a solution where I can say it's a global solution, nothing like it. So but then I had to find something within our sector. It's very important. We are not so far from obstetrics, but we are not specialized in obstetrics. But what helped the decision is the fact that Dr. Özgür was a specialist and extremely passionate about it. That was extremely an important ingredient. The second thing is Dr. Serdal himself, who was very, very well pushy. Plus, as I mentioned, that it looked very possible. So I could see the results before even we made any agreements. They were very well prepared in terms of their ideas and the potential, etc. And I could see that it is within our capacity and know-how. Also, I wanted to engage our organization to show them that, look, we can do it. So it was a good example for our organization, and we did a lot of noise to say, well, look, you can be engaged in an add value on a global level, where Johnson & Johnson actually recalled their solution because we are bringing a new solution which actually solves the reason of that recall. So, and this is conceived by a surgeon, and he practiced it, he tried it, he's very innovative. And we are actually the catalysts behind it. And of course, it brings also fair amount of revenue. And what's surprising is that we got calls from the government programs. They say, well, we didn't actually use the incentives, but they called us. They want to say, well, our incentive is ready for you now that you are successful. So we said, okay, that's even a cherry on the cake. We already did the investment. And now we got the CE. So that means we're able to launch. We're just finalizing the last touches, and we're doing the business plan. Yes, it may be an adventure. It's a great experience. I think everyone played an excellent role in it, in the sense to catalyze the process. Otherwise, it was an expensive solution for us, but nothing out of the ordinary. It was expensive as any other solution that requires that kind of cost. What can I say? I'm eager actually to see it launched in the market, and I hopefully patients benefit from this, and then I can justify also the energy we put.
May I sort of ask, this licensing agreement at that level where the company was, is it typically in your domain of expertise in the surgical space? Is what you do with other startups that have a similarly well-structured, not only technology, but also team? Because you trust the team, I think.
Absolutely. Well, the license, of course, Soranos had ideas, we had ideas. There was a lot of listening and convincing on both sides. So obviously they're very passionate about their work, but also we're very, very practical. This is something that we have to put in operations. It's very heavy. But going back to the license, look, there are different ways to skin the cat. So there are, license is one of them. And the license, whatever you put under the license, it's what you feel is good for you and good for the other party. So you come to the negotiation table, and then you discuss you've tried to bridge the gaps and to find what's a win-win situation. Then it becomes a license agreement. In a Selsan case, the investment is much, much bigger. The solution is much more complicated. And we have an agreement, a simple agreement. And this agreement, you can call it, which allows us indefinitely to and exclusively on a global level to sell this, which we specified and they engineered. So that's another license. So I believe it depends on the other side, who they are, what's their expectations, what's your expectation. You have to be very clear about your expectation. I have to be clear about what we want, and we have to be fair. And we have to look on their side, our side, and then we say this is it.
This value proposition, the mutual value proposition, is oftentimes mismatched, especially in countries like Turkey, where people have, especially in medtech space, because in other spaces it can happen. In maybe aviation would be hard, but in medtech space, the value proposition is unlike the other arrangements, other sort of licensing or other acquisition arrangements and so on and so forth. So because we are so-called deep tech type of a sector, meaning there is a lot of things that happen behind and afterwards, meaning becoming a standard of care beyond anything about regulation or anything about intellectual property or anything that is to be adopted, embraced by the medical community, by the healthcare enterprise, to become a standard of care, especially for a futuristic, first-in-kind kind of a technology, which we call yenilik or innovation kind of technology. That is really the huge big thing. That's where Bıçakcılar is not their very solid partner, because you are already in with your brand in the standard of care business. Everything
this is correct. And I want to mention the life or the journey from a concept to a launch. What in general people forget, like for instance, the Soranus case. Yes. So there was a lot of focus on the idea and the patent, but the patent or the patency is only probably 10% of the whole journey.
Yes.
And sometimes we tend to minimize the commercial efforts and know-how and art and costs, the commercialization. You just actually address it. How can you make one of the toughest customers, which is the healthcare professional, adopt your solution when there are other solutions? So you got to do a lot of convincing, a lot of investment, a lot of proof, a lot of clinicals. Yes. And all of this is when it comes to us, and when we talk maybe to at least 20, 30 different startups, but most of them focus on this part, that part, but they tend to forget the bigger part, which is getting this into the market.
It's not forgetting, Souheil, it's lack of realistic expectations. So they have been pumped up. In Turkey, gaza getirildiler. People who sort of took the models from other sectors where, for instance, retail or it could be education or whatever other sector where such adoption may be much more readily possible, social media or whatever, IT kind of stuff. In medical professional, like you said, this transition to becoming a standard of care, a solution that is going to be accepted by the profession and all the professionals, that is an enormous hurdle. They cannot even anticipate until they do it. So in a way, we have to be out there, you especially, someone like you who lives it from the concept to commercialization, we have to be out there emphasizing and getting them prepared not to be unrealistic like they are. Now I have Veysel on who wants to speak, and we have like 9 minutes left before I join the TÜBİTAK team. But Veysel, you probably have something very relevant to say to what we're discussing right now. Yes.
Thank you very much for this talks, and I took lots of notes. I will start from the beginning. As you mentioned, 80%, Souheil Bey, 80% of the market is from the import. But in the reality, they are earning more than us. I'm a producer. We are making some kind of consumable products, and we are using your service on our sterilization tests. And finally, Alperen is here, is our partner now. But when we are looking for the trade, and as Banu Hocam mentioned, we are really, we have to be careful for our money, for everything. It's not easy to survive in our market because we are losing money each day when we sell the money. So from that point of view, in the realistic, but at the end you mentioned that we shouldn't look only for local market. In the global, it's bigger. Yes, right. And Soranus case, I really listened to Soranus case from Özgür Bey in a EIC meeting. He was a kind of lecturer as well. That was really nice. We can talk with you, and we are not in the same space. We are developing a novel treatment for the glaucoma, which is a kind of eye disease, neurodegenerative disease, and we are trying to fix or solve or stop it. It's a unique and new method. And today I was late because we get our second study with the full of tests. So I am really excited. In 2-3 months, we will get some more data. And I don't want to talk too much because we are almost at the end of session. I would like to thank you. I already write you from the LinkedIn, Souheil Bey. We would like to talk with you. Even we are not in safe space, your expertise and your support on the Soranus story, especially in the EIC section, which we are in that part as well. We already applied. We would like to get your, if possible, support and help on that case.
So
that will be a pleasure.
They are looking for a guardian angel, and you have time.
I don't know about the angel, maybe shaitan.
That's fine as well.
Well, oftentimes, because when you are being very direct, they may think of you as a shaitan, yes. But it's a shaitan that they like because you will put them on the right track. So on the 31st of August, if you could mark your calendar, if you're available, please come listen to them, because I have had many, I will not say conversations, but arguments with them. And I have pointed a lot of gaps, a lot of weaknesses, and so on and so forth. And I said, dost acı konuşur. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes.
Dost?
Acı konuşur. The friend, the dost, you know dost concept.
Yeah, dost.
Arabic, I think. No, Persian, I think. Persian.
No,
concept.
yeah.
But we speak sour, we speak tough. We have to truth, basically. Then if they think of us as shaitans, let them think about shaitans, because they can learn something from the shaitans. So clearly, on 31st, if you could come, if you could put it on your calendar,
Sure.
It would be wonderful if you hear them out. And there will be also others who will contribute to the conversation. So I'm happy that you made this connection, Veysel. Veysel is a good businessman, but he's new in this space. Never forget that. Alperen is a technology developer and Abdülkadir is a physician. So amazingly, they don't have truly someone like you who would be their guardian angel or shaitan, whatever.
Well, I'm sure I will learn a lot. Actually, they do me a favor whenever I meet startups, etc. It's really an eye opener, because every time there is totally a different story, a good experience that sometimes we see how they made it, and then we try to adopt their practice. So it's a mutual, it's a mutual benefit, and I would encourage anyone. And it's not about time. I will always make time. If you want to talk, you want to just have some like a brainstorming session, I'm more than happy. And by the way, those reviews, we do them internal and sometimes external. When we have a proposal, we are shaitan by all means. That means there are no taboos. So you go in and ask all sorts of questions to make sure that these people know that that your risks are low or they covered everything.
Yes,
and that's what makes the business plan a strong business plan.
And this is why hopefully we will get them to be one of the case studies in our medtech innovation courses and workshops, because in this course we specifically look from the point of view of the investor, someone like you investing his time, or someone who has money and networks to invest in them. So in a way, that kind of point of view helps them reinforce their operations and close their gaps. So it's very useful to you. So it's a good way of being a shaitan, Souheil. To that.
Very
So
well.
I like to, because we have now 3 minutes left, I like to have Tuygan, who has listened to the whole conversation, to say a few words, and then Yasemin always does a good job closing the session. Yes, Tuygan, what do you think about this conversation?
It was a very interesting conversation, really, because I was part of the auditing team in 2011. Auditing Bıçakcılar on behalf of this fund.
Okay.
But
When was that? In 2011.
Yes,
I really, if I have a chance, I would like to have in private maybe ask some questions just for my curiosity. Thanks.
Sure.
It was a very helpful conversation, really.
Yes, because truly 2011 when Bıçakcılar was purchased, so you were doing the auditing for the investors, I suppose.
Yes, on behalf of investors.
Oh,
It was a team. Some members were doing financials. I was doing the technical of the production, manufacturing side, labs and everything. And another friend of mine, my partner, was doing the marketing, regulatories, and
great. Hey,
and we made the whole auditing of the company at the end.
Hopefully Souheil managed to live up to the expectations, because audits also speak about the future, what needs to be done and what needs to change or transform. Thank you so much, Tuygan, for letting us know. Please be in touch and please be part of our conversations. Yasemin, we have like a minute to close.
Yeah, okay. I will just talk a minute. I would like to really thank Dr. Elhakim. This was really inspiring talk, especially someone that comes outside and lives in Turkey. And I think you emphasize the really important point for us, all the startup companies, even though you came to a well-established company, but I believe that this transformation even more difficult than building up a new company. I mean, because you will face with the resistance along with the existing problem. I mean, it's transformation even difficult. And you say something really important. I believe it's important for startup as well, that always there is obstacles and problem, and you will face along the way. But the more important thing, just don't give up and fight with it. And to be able to do that, you need a great team. I think you have there a great team and good people with the good tools that can help you to face with this problem. And another important thing, I think we need to be aware of our sources and the potential as a country, that most of the time we most probably underestimate it and look outside more than inside. I mean, these 2 points, I believe that important for Bıçakcılar, hopefully apparently the reason of the success, but might be important for startup as well. And I wish the cases like Soranos will be more, will have the more example. Maybe Bıçakcılar may have a mission of supporting this type of special cases. That will be good, inspiring point for us as well.
And hopefully Glakoti also, because
whatever.
And now Glakoti, I introduced Soranos, but I didn't introduce Glakoti. They came by themselves. So I will not have any claims if something wonderful happens. Yes.
Well, whatever helps, whether it's whatever we can do, whatever in my hands or in our resources team able to help, because really, as you said, there's definitely the talent in Turkey and the potential of Turkey is so much, I could say, underlined, so much underestimated. And we would like not to complain about the issues, we would like to find a solution. So people talk about problems in education, etc. Well, let's find a solution. Can we? And we have. Actually, we're contributing at our scale in finding a solution related to the expertise, etc. So that's our role, not just as a company to sell and to, no, it's our role actually to create an impact in the society. I really truly believe that, because that's going to return back onto us. So thank you actually for making even think more about what we have been discussing and what I was thinking the past few years about what we're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much
Thank
to
you very
all
much.
who remained until now. And Souheil, it's always wonderful. Tuygan, it's great to see you and the rest of the group. Yasemin is always so wonderful. And hopefully we will have a very nice resource for those who would like to learn more about realistic medtech industry and the possibility for innovation in Turkey, because there will be a Turkish model. Türk tipi model çıkacak arkadaşlar.
Bu lazım. I'm on LinkedIn, by the way. Feel free to connect with me. You can message me, and then we can take it from there.
They
I already right.
Yes.
Tamam.
And they can get your contact information from in a moment.
Yes.
So that's not a problem. But we have to say bye, and
Bye.
we will see you
Thank you
next
very
time.
much.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.